Howdy, howdy.
Howdy.
And welcome to But It Was Aliens. The extraterrestrial comedy podcast. Are you quite done? Where we take it in turns to probe possible real-life alien attacks and other extraterrestrial incidents to determine whether these events really happened or whether there are other explanations. I'm Kev, aka Greybeard, and I'm leading this week's investigation, and alongside me, doing a few squats to warm up, is one Granville Moonwalker. Today, Granville, you might actually lose your shit because we are genuinely covering a declassified CIA report. A report originally written on the 27th of March, 1993.
It's nearly a good day, that.
Nearly, but not quite.
Nearly, but not quite.
Can anyone guess where Mr. Moonwalker's birthday is? Definitely not in 1993.
Are you saying I didn't have a birthday in 1993?
Yeah, you skipped it. When Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev, the last ruler of the Soviet Union, to whom I've just absolutely destroyed pronunciation of his name, lost power in 1991, many KGB documents made their way to the desks of the CIA. Included within this documentation was a 250-page document on the incident we are going to cover today. I'm starting with this right up front because you've been a little sour pants lately, Mr. Moonwalker, so I'm having to get you on the right foot from the start. Please don't read this. I've made it really small, so hopefully you can't for now. But I'm even showing you a screenshot here, Granville, just so that you can see that this is a legit, pissing, genuine CIA report. Don't read it. Don't read it.
Sour sauce. You tell me not to read something, you know I'm going to read it.
Moving on. Stop reading it. I can see you reading it. All right, read it.
No.
A military unit were training in Siberia in 1987. There were 25 military personnel at this training base.
Was there any tigers?
Not that I'm aware of. I appreciate that it's Siberia, but do the military often have tigers just wandering around
Siberia.
Training bases?
Siberian tigers, so I just thought I'd ask a question. You said no, so I just left you to continue.
Right. You know how it is in the military, right? You work hard, lumbering heavy equipment miles and miles, handling equipment, touching equipment, figuring out how to get the equipment up, erecting equipment. But it isn't only that. There's also capturing the flag, red versus blue, taking Blood Gulch. Anyway, two military men, Private Leonard L. Church, who was leading the training exercise on the ground, and a Captain Lavernius Tucker, were talking by the blue base when above them, out of nowhere, a UFO breached the skyline and came hurtling towards the military training base. By UFO, I'm talking the traditional Sorceress shape, which, as we've covered, from a particular angle, does look Tic Tac-like. The saucer was red, green and yellow in colour all at once. Pearlescent, biatch. You just want to ask about bloody tigers, don't you?
No.
You've got a smile on your face like you want to talk about tigers.
Do you reckon they put, like, laser beams on tigers?
So you don't want to talk about tigers, then?
I want to talk about laser beams.
No, I do not think they put laser beams on tigers.
What do you think they put laser beams on, then, if not tigers?
Each other.
Ooh. Were they tigers?
No, they were military. Do you have any questions about the military base?
No, I don't. But
what about tigers? Have you ever met one?
So this thing was Tic Tac like.
Yeah, it could have been, yes. Saucer-esque in shape, which, as I say, we've covered several times, how if you catch that from a different angle, that can look tic-tacky.
Yeah. So what they're saying here is this saucer-esque shape. Who was it? Church?
Yes.
Did Church see it?
Yeah, yeah.
So the angle he was looking
Church
at,
and Tucker, yeah.
it looked like to them that Siberian tigers were playing tic-tac-toe.
Christ's sake, absolutely not. We're not talking about tigers. So, anything about the case?
In all seriousness,
Yeah. If you ask about tigers.
I wasn't going to, but I was really tempted just because you said
I wasn't going to, but...
No, I was going to say, what time of
Were
day
there
was
roars?
it that they saw it?
What time of day was it? I don't actually know. I can't recall.
So the tigers couldn't have been sleeping at that time?
Nope. No
Okay,
tigers.
No, the serious question I was going to ask was...
how many tigers?
The red, green and yellow that they saw off
the craft.
the craft, or whatever this was it the reflection of the sun?
I really thought you were going to say, was it a tiger? Could have been, yeah. It could have been. The red and yellow, certainly.
yeah,
green would be maybe a mixture.
Whatever it was, just the angle they caught it at.
Yeah, possibly reflected
the light
off the ground a little bit as well.
Exactly. You've seen, like, Top Gun and films like that.
I've seen the first Top Gun.
That's fine. When they show, like, some of the planes in the sky and they catch that angle of the sun, and then it comes off the plane. Was it just an angle like that
could have been? Hard to say, but we are going to get deeper into it, and I just want you to remember that there are 25 witnesses here.
Tell you what it could have also been.
Don't.
A magnifying glass.
Oh.
Like being reflected off of something by a tiger.
Right, we're moving on. Church assumed that this UFO was the work of Super Colonel Sarge, his rival from...
Tiger.
No, his rival from Red Team. And Church decided to monitor its movements as it shimmered above them.
Red Team.
This UFO then dropped in the sky at rapid speed and begun flying unusually low. Church remained firm on his order to monitor but not to engage the craft under any circumstances. Any. Manning the anti-aircraft systems, more specifically the S-300 surface-to-air missile system at this time, was one Captain M.J. Caboose. Caboose, too, had seen the UFO. Caboose was a bit of a, I don't want to say rogue or maverick, because that isn't entirely accurate.
He was a tiger.
By isn't entirely accurate, I mean not at all accurate, because Caboose had a reputation for perhaps being a little bit unwise. There's no way to dress it up. Caboose was not the brightest spark. The command rung out through the radios from Church. Do not fire.
You've put a picture in here for me.
Yes.
Of a...
Just for your own reference, it's the S-300 surface-to-air missile system.
Oh, so what you will notice is...
There's no tigers in it.
It's stripy.
Green with grey stripes.
So it's still stripy?
It's military, so it's going to be camouflaged, yes.
Camouflage tiger.
It's absolutely not a tiger. Have you even seen a tiger?
It's an anti...
You're like, yeah, I've seen a tiger. You draw a picture of a tank.
It's an anti-aircraft tiger.
I don't know where you grew up. The military were firing tigers into the sky at aircraft.
Tigers are firing missiles.
Right, so we've established at this point that it's not a tiger.
Okay, it's not a tiger, fine.
But was it driven by a tiger?
Don't want to know, it's not a tiger.
These surface-to-air missile systems tend to operate with both radar... No, with both radar... Absolutely not. Radar targeting and heat-seeking capabilities, for example, infrared detection. The missiles can readjust with continual input received from the ground radar and the heat-seeking measurements. Manning the system, Caboose heard the words, "Do not fire." And of course, Caboose. Hit. Fire.
Because the tiger bit his caboose.
I'm just going to ignore that now. The surface-to-air missile launched, and within seconds of that, boom! Direct hit. The saucer, by that point hovering low and slow, appeared to have been taken by surprise, almost as if it had heard the do not fire command and was struck square on. The craft hurtled towards the ground and crashed with an almighty thud. There was no explosion, however.
Okay, so...
No,
they were told,
a tiger didn't come out of the craft.
They were told not to fire.
Yep. Caboose heard the word fire.
Why would you repeatedly keep telling them that?
Because they're seeing something crazy in the skies, and people are going to get alarmed, aren't they? And think, holy shit, we got to defend ourselves.
But in that situation, you're also going to have people like Caboose. And if they're on high alert, and you keep saying things like, do not fire, they're on high alert. There's going to be things that they just misinterpret. So they are more likely to fire.
Yeah, Sarge was like, do not fire, do not fire.
It's a tiger!
It wasn't a tiger. And Caboose was like, fire. I hit it.
And then he thinks he's a hero.
Absolutely. Caboose is thinking he's just saved the day. Sarge is about to beat his ass.
No explosion. I'm not completely surprised by that.
How so?
Because we have no idea what it's made out of or what's on board. You tend to get explosions when things hit because there's obviously accelerants and explosive things on or within the target that's hit. We have no idea what this is.
Yeah, if this is some sort of anti-gravity system, for example, how do you explode gravity? Good call.
You don't explode like...
If you say tigers.
I was going to say tree, but I suppose
with
a tree
a tiger in it?
If you shot a missile at a tree and the missile goes through the tree should just drop like it's been chopped. Unless the... To be fair, is there within like missiles and stuff like that, are there things to detonate and explode within the missile?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of when that missile hits, there's something within it that causes the accelerant or whatever in whatever it's hitting to explode, causes the chemical reaction?
There is a bit of both. The impact causes the reaction, unless it's timed or remote controlled. Any impact will make it go bang.
Okay.
It will have combustible elements.
Yeah, I suppose, because there's
Like,
always
for
bits in
example,
films, don't drop the
way,
missile because it will blow up.
Nuclear bombs work. You have the plutonium or whatever it is on each side, and you'll have a bit of accelerant behind one side. So then they detonate it and it fires it towards the other side. They hit and the atoms break and boom.
So did this object...
Not that this was a nuke.
I wouldn't say disengage, but stop whatever reaction, nuclear reaction or chemical reaction that was meant to happen within the missile. Did this object stop that?
Yeah, just a metal dong on it. Boom.
Yeah.
Good call.
Like slowed it down enough that it just goes... bounces off.
Yeah, as I was explaining this, I didn't really think that through. That's absolutely mental, isn't it? You got a torpedo, imagine, like a big metal rod flying at a craft, absolutely cracks it and then just drops to the floor.
Yeah, so...
Maybe he did fire a tiger.
Did the missile that he fired explode? So did it explode, hit the object, and the object just dropped without exploding itself? Or did the missile just hit it and cause it to drop?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. There was lots of, and we'll cover this in a second, but there was lots of smoke and rubble that went up where it hit the floor, but the account didn't actually explain whether there was like an actual explosion on the craft itself. It's just the account said there wasn't an explosion. So
was there smoke when the missile hit it?
It's not detailed.
Not detailed. Okay. Within the smoke, Siberian tiger genie.
You know what the CIA are like. They all ride tigers. So, Blue Team moved in to assess what the craft was. As the smoke, dust and rubble launched from the impact with the ground begun to clear, just enough to make out the outline of what was left behind, the military personnel realised that what had been struck was definitely not destroyed. In fact, what everyone was now looking at a few 100 feet or so away was a completely intact saucer wedged to a degree into the ground. Sure, it was dusty and slightly banged up, but this thing looked like it might even still be functional. The military were careful and spent a good while watching from a safe distance. After a while, they moved in closer and took up defensive positions. Nothing. They moved closer still. By this point, the military could make out an entrance-like area on the craft. It was indeed an entrance because suddenly a door began receding into the craft. A door opened. Out walked a tiger. It was tigers all along. It didn't, just to clarify.
It spoke in the most elegant voice.
Why, hello there.
Like Shere Khan from the Jungle Book.
That's not where I was going with the voice. Not at all.
So it did damage the object.
It was a little bit banged up, but not to a great degree.
So did it scramble when the missile hit? Did it
It
scramble
just went down.
systems or anything?
Possibly. We don't know. It's an unexplained or unidentified craft that just went down, and now a door is opened.
Because by the sound of things, you could throw a tiger at this thing and it would hit it, and it would just come down.
I'm just going to pause the podcast for a minute, go and edit this episode to mention tigers all the way through so that this makes sense. Because it's going to be too much work to cut all the tiger references at this point.
I don't know why you would. It's
When
clearly
did
tigers.
you become fixated upon tigers?
Because I saw the word Siberian. That was literally it. There is
my
nothing more,
gosh.
nothing less. As a child, I used to watch
Tigers?
nature documentaries.
You still
all
do. We
the
talked
time.
about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but I mean, like, all the time.
And you
when I was
still
young.
do. You go to sleep watching them.
Yeah, but I don't finish them. Although, to be fair, I watched one on
Title of your sex tape.
Killer Whales the other day on Kiko. The one from Free Willy. At some point, I'm getting a killer whale tattoo.
Surprises me slightly that you don't have one now that I
know.
think about it.
Might get one of a tiger with a laser beam. So this tiger walked out the door, and no one was expecting it. It was a regal tiger.
Why is it regal?
Because it's a fucking tiger. And it had
So it's a tiger then?
military suit on. And it was like, why did you shoot down my craft? Rawr. And all anyone heard was, and then they shot the tiger dead. Poor tiger. That's the end.
Well, you've turned that incredibly sad.
I'm not going to
That's
mention.
the end.
I'm not going to mention tigers after that phrase anymore. Promise.
All right.
Now, if you happen to bring them up, it's fair game.
I haven't brought them up through the whole episode.
It's a lie, but carry on.
From the door to the craft, visible though covered in rubble, silhouetted by the bright lights behind them, emerged 5 dark figures. The figures were short, with oversized heads and very large eyes, so I guess you could describe them as most likely to be greys, though nowhere could I find that terminology used. What are you doing? Mr. Moonwalker is sat opposite me here, acting out every word that I'm saying, and laughing at himself doing it. As they emerged, the military could make out that they appeared to have a silvery grey-like complexion. These figures quickly gathered outside the craft, and to the 25 military personnel looking on in sheer amazement, the figures appeared to take each other by the hand before they begun merging into one single ball of light. A buzzing sound begun. The ball of light increased in size, almost as if a brilliant white sun was forming behind their very eyes before that bastard went supernova. Yep, the ball of light exploded.
So
Sign language, biatch.
what I was actually doing was trying to get him to tell the truth to you people and let you know what it really was.
You looked like the person who translates late at night on TV. You switch on channel 2 at like 1 in the morning. There's a person signing. Thank you for that. Are you going to talk? Because this is an audio.
It is.
I'd love to transcribe it for our hearing
I'm not
impaired
allowed to
listeners,
because
but
I said I wouldn't mention it, so I'm not going to mention it. So anyway, where were we?
I don't even know. You're derailing me here quite significantly. Ball of light exploded.
Did it hurt anyone?
They all held hands, merged into one. We'll cover what happened next. At the moment, I'd like to hear your ideas.
So they walk out and they kind of
Scissor each other.
detonate themselves.
You could argue that, yeah.
Just they didn't have to do the. They just walked out and done it.
Yes, they're unlikely to be predators.
That's disappointing. You said we're going to go on to what happened, so
We are, yeah.
we will find out if it hurt anyone. Or, ooh, is this their way of infecting people
Ooh, with what?
themselves?
What, like
So
an
every-
STD?
They kind of blow up and turn into some kind of microorganism, go into the deep cells of someone else, and then grow out of them like a chest buster.
That's interesting.
Or that from that point they're able to take control of those people that are within that vicinity of the explosion, and therefore take over the world.
I like where your mind is at.
What are we going to do tonight, brain? The same thing we do every night, Pinky. We're going to take over the world. Please tell me you've seen Pinky in the Brain.
I have.
Good.
I was just trying not to pop. Of the 25 military personnel watching on, 23 were toast. Toasties! Well, that's not entirely accurate. Bizarrely, the 23 closest to the explosion of light, rather than exploding or disintegrating, quite literally turned to stone poles. The petrified expressions of these individuals were captured forevermore in their solid, stony sculptures. All that was left was the stony poles and the accounts of the 2 survivors who were stood further away monitoring the events. Being a pussy pays, son. Those 2 survivors were stood in the shade of their post and therefore were protected from the brilliant white light. These survivors called in the events to control. A team was quickly dispatched and the remains were transferred to a research institution near Moscow.
So they Medusa'd them.
They pretty much Medusa'd them, yeah. They all Megazorded up and then Medusa'd them. Mega Medusa. Megusa.
Do we have any proof of the 23 statues?
So, if we did have proof, I'd probably show it to you later. I'm not saying we do. I'm not saying we don't either.
Or is it a case of they only stayed stone for a certain amount of time?
Oh no, they were rocks.
Done. Done for.
Yeah.
I
Stonehenge, baby. That's so insensitive. The 2 survivors were walking around. Stonehenge, baby. Taking photos of each other in front of them all.
So did they actually turn to like a stone pole
Yeah,
that just
basically.
had the facial expression, like their features left? Or did they turn completely to stone, like a humanoid statue, for example? Everything was exactly as it was. They just stone.
Yeah, kind of
rather than
stone, but poles rather
than a
than
pole.
being like sculptures of themselves. They
Oh,
were
so
poled.
not a statue.
No.
A pole.
Yeah, poled. So sort of where their arms were, they were connected to the body. Pole.
Oh, so it shocked them into like an upright position.
Kinda, yeah, I think so.
Like
Kinda. More that whatever position they were, it went all the way up and down like they were stone poles.
Oh, so it added to them.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, I guess you could argue that.
Okay. As if it picked up the minerals around their feet and added to them.
As I understand the account, yes.
Were they all identically... were they all identical?
No.
Same size, same shape, weighed the same?
Not as far as I'm aware of.
Did they try and chisel the people out? And did they find that whatever was added to them to make them a pole, was it the same amount for each person?
So,
For example...
what you've got to think of here is that Moscow took the remains.
I'm sure there would have been documentation, and didn't all this documentation cross the desk of the CIA?
So the account of the event crossed it. I'm not saying the evidence made its way to the CIA, because it went to Moscow, son.
Fair
You know that once something's in Moscow, that ain't coming out. Scientists analysing the remains discovered that the humans had been turned into a chemical compound almost identical to limestone in molecular structure. But how? This isn't something we can do with our current technology. The scientists believed that a source of energy unknown to Earth at this point in time had been utilised to do so.
But we can't turn people to stone!
All right, Captain Tiger.
You mentioned it's fair game now.
You got nothing, have you?
No.
It is unknown what happened to the aliens themselves. We just don't know whether they became poles too, or whether they had some kind of technology that destroyed all evidence, including themselves, or what the F, David Blaine?
Some kind of... no.
The remains of the UFO were also transferred to the research station, though. You can understand why the CIA got hold of this, and the CIA felt that this technology was menacing. That's how they described it. Menacing.
Yeah, you can. I mean, having the ability to turn people to limestone or a chemical compound almost identical to limestone, you can see that being menacing.
I'd argue that's a little bit more than menacing.
You wouldn't want that in the hands of the wrong people.
Or anyone.
Or any tigers.
I didn't mention it there.
I never said that you had to mention it exactly then for me to be able to bring it up. I just said you had to mention it, and it's fair game. You mentioned it. It's fair game.
For how long?
Rest of the episode.
What's the point?
Shouldn't have brought it up.
Oh no.
So, what I'm thinking here is, to our knowledge, we've not seen any evidence of this technology in use yet. But what if the tigers have the technology and they're keeping it safe out of
have you ever
hands?
Seen a scientist tiger?
You said they had to be scientists. What if they're guardians, protectors of the realm?
Have you ever seen one that looks advanced enough to be messing with this kind of stuff?
Maybe they don't want us to know they're that advanced.
I thought you watched a lot of documentaries on animals. By documentaries, do you mean cartoons?
All I need to say is you just need to chill with your tiger hate.
It's not hate, they're majestic creatures.
Exactly.
I'm just arguing that they aren't fired from military vehicles. They don't walk on 2 feet and talk to people.
From military vehicles. I said they fired from the military vehicles.
They don't fly crafts.
There's nothing to say that they walked on 2
They
feet.
don't have lasers on their
4.
heads.
Never said it was attached to their heads. Could have been attached to their legs.
They don't have them
Their
attached
tail.
anywhere.
You're making quite a lot of assumptions here, Greybeard.
I'm just going to move on. Because that's not all sad. Because there were 2 survivors.
Yeah, we know this.
Remember.
The 2 that hid.
Yeah, but remember, these were military men. After securing the area as much as they could, these 2 men begun gathering evidence. I have for you today what is, allegedly truthfully, one of the leaked photos from the Siberian attack. Now, allegedly truthfully, the CIA has hundreds of pages worth of documents on this event, but not much has leaked at all, except for that report I showed you earlier, and this. I apologise in advance for the grim nature of this photo, Mr. Moonwalker. We are about to examine a photo of the remains of one of the military men. Take a look at this, good sir.
Now, before I do take a look, I'm going to hazard a guess as to what this picture is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a block of rubble, isn't it? Like a bit of limestone.
So I might have misled you slightly earlier on.
Okay. What I have here, it looks like a... What the hell?
Would you like to describe what you're looking at?
I'm looking at a person that is just striking a pose. Would you say that pose looks similar to Night Fever?
Yes, absolutely.
So he's striking the Night Fever pose, and I can't make out if that's his face in the centre,
Or whether it's the face above.
but
Yeah.
in the head, like region. That's what tripped me out.
It's a high quality photo, isn't it? Of
Very, very, very
Of
high
the
quality.
Rock.
I mean, if you're looking at this and you thought it was tinfoil, you would be very, very mistaken. His hands are bandaged.
interesting observation. Why would they be bandaged?
I would assume they'd be bandaged if it was burnt, but looks like he's got crispy fingers. Yeah, it's like a tinfoil man doing the Night Fever pose, and he seems to have tinfoil cone nipples as well,
Do you think
or a weird growth.
those fingers taste different to standard fingers?
You'll have to ask tigers. I don't eat fingers unless they're fish fingers. Captain Bird's eye, fish fingers sandwich, tomato sauce. I'm all over the fucking shop today.
You're hungry and sleepy because you're in animal mode. You better not get horny on me. One observation I had on this photo, just being serious for a moment, it's black and white. If you remember, this occurred in 1987. I would have expected colour at this point. Fair enough, it could have been scanned in, but it doesn't look like a scan to me.
I can also accept that it wouldn't be, considering where they are and what they're doing. But at what point did colour cameras become a thing? Although,
way before 87.
I'm pretty sure the military would have had them way before they even came to the public anyway.
Gosh, yeah, you got to think Polaroids were around for years and years before.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, now that you mention that, it looks superimposed. It doesn't look real.
Well, you say
Like,
that, but the edges aren't blurry.
No, they're not. But if you just look at the top, so that Night Fever arm that's at the top, and then look at the trees in the background, looks a bit Photoshoppy.
I also think
Night Fever.
that he doesn't look that stony to me. He looks a bit frozen, like his jacket is a bit, again, crispy from the ice.
Yeah, to be...
Captain Crisp over here.
That's a good point.
But he's not really full stone.
Has he been in the ice for too long, and that's why his hands are bandaged and look like they're like sore.
Yeah, night fever person does look like they've got snow on them and aren't really stony. Yeah. Sorry, guys. But we mentioned right at the start that this one is a declassified... easy for me to say. Declassified CIA report. That report is a translation of a report from a Ukrainian newspaper called Ternopil Verchini. Okay, so it's from a newspaper, but ask yourself, why would the CIA keep this report? Admittedly, the original newspaper report did state that the original source for this story was the Canadian conspiracy magazine Weekly World News, and the Weekly World News was well known at the time for publishing bonkers fiction news articles, but still, why would the CIA keep it? Why, Granville? Why?
Tiger studies.
Tiger.
Do you reckon they kept it just so they didn't get tricked by it again in the future?
Maybe.
Like,
maybe they thought it was funny.
If they kept it and then got rid of it, and then
But
10
then-
years down the line, this story comes out again, they're like, "Ooh, shit, we better investigate." Totally forgetting that they'd already investigated it and it was bullshit.
Maybe.
Or they may have found it funny, the fact that the Russians may have thought it was real.
Maybe because it's sort of originally in Russian. Or was it? But maybe if it was, they couldn't actually read it all. And so they
That's a
saw
good
that it
point.
was like a UFO event and they thought it was genuine.
That's a very good point. Whereas it could have just been the Russians taking the mick out of the original story.
Look at these stupid bastards. We've got through nearly a whole episode on a Russian topic without mentioning a certain Wang.
It's ruined it.
Well, I wasn't going to mention it. Summarising today's case, we've covered
Tigers.
and a Russian military training exercise in Siberia in 1987. A UFO suddenly appeared in the sky. The Sarge thought this probably was part of a training drill and sent an order to all units to watch, monitor the craft, but not to fire under any circumstances. Caboose heard that and fired. Caboose had been manning the surface-to-air missile system, which operated by dual targeting, including radar and heat-seeking. The SAM scored a direct hit. The UFO crashed, but remained fairly intact. 23 military personnel approached whilst 2 looked on from their scout post. 5 dark figures, similar to Grey's, emerged from the craft and begun holding hands. The aliens turned into a great white light and exploded, turning the 23 military folks to stone. The 2 survivors called it in and took visual proof after securing the perimeter. A team was quickly on the scene and transferred the stony remains as well as the craft to a research institution in Moscow. The CIA got wind of this case and the menacing technology and filed the reports, which had leaked from Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this report may have originated from a less than reliable newspaper. But why did the CIA keep, file, and apply security status to this report? Anything to add, Mr. Moonwalker?
I mean, the guy's name was Caboose. Do you reckon they tried to like stick the name Caboose in, and they were like, the Canadians were laughing their cabooses off
Someone certainly did.
as everyone thought that this would be real, and they're giggling the fact that they called someone like Sergeant Caboose and people were taking it seriously.
Like us. Any other thoughts?
What happened to the tigers in the end?
Are you saying that it was aliens?
No, not at all.
Don't just laugh at me. At least humour me.
I'm more likely to believe that this is tigers than
Oh,
it
who would have thought?
is aliens.
Frickin' tigers.
And I don't even believe it's tigers. So, no. I wasn't aware that it was a like an alien kind of story. So did they do that as a joke?
Not that
or
we
were
know
they
of.
just putting stories out just to try and make people believe that aliens?
People do believe that this one is real because it's an official report, obviously. And why would you apply security status to a document if there's not something within that document that you don't want people to cotton on to?
I think some people in Canada were having a laugh with this one, and it got out of hand. But it got to the point where they couldn't actually admit that they were having a laugh because it got so out of hand. So they just left it. They were like, nope, not touching that. Can stay there. And then there's people going around thinking it's real. So for me, it's not aliens. This is a wild story told to either make people laugh or to try and convince people that aliens are real. And if it's the latter, then they have actually managed to do that. Yeah. So kudos.
I'm inclined to agree, for I'm not saying that it was aliens, but this file, imagine my excitement when I see that there is a genuine CIA file on this. I'm downloading files, I'm locking my doors, falsifying my IP address, I'm stocking up on cans of dog food because I know that these bastards will come for me with what I've found. But then I dig a little further, I find there's a less than reliable newspaper involved and shit. But then, if this was a legit story of sorts, what a great way to cover your tracks. Leak it to a less authentic source so that they break the news first and everyone is traced back to them. I mean, I'm still calling bullshit, but what a great idea. Also, it was me who changed the names of the military personnel. There were shit all details on this, so I was like, Sarge, caboose. That CIA report I showed you is actually completely... That's it. That's all there is. Which still doesn't explain why the CIA kept it at all, though.
No. And I suppose it stops my theory of them just trying to see if they can get the name Caboose.
Do you know where those names come from?
Ass.
No, it's red versus blue.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I remember watching like 2 episodes of
Was it
season
Rooster Teeth
1.
that made it? Yeah. You're a boy, Caboose.
Yeah, I've never watched. Well, like
it gets mad in the later seasons. I watched it when I was at university. They're probably still making it now, to be honest.
Don't know, but never been a Halo fan, so I'm really bothered with it.
It was just funny.
I know, but still, maybe one day I'll go back and watch.
Unlikely.
Very unlikely.
There are tigers in it. You remember when we were talking about you being
red versus blue?
Just type it in his Google machine. Earlier on, we were talking about you being hungry and sleepy. After I said that, you gave me the other eyes. Anyway, that is a wrap for today, folks. Thank you for listening, supporting us, and genuinely making a nuisance for yourself towards those pesky MRBs. If you'd like to be even more problematic for those black-suited bastards, well, you can sign up to our Patreon over at patreon.com. /but it was aliens. And for about a $5, you get access to our side pros where each month we explore more widely paranormal events. The Mibs really don't want you to hear those. Crazy shit goes down. We've had... What have we covered?
Tigers.
Have we? There's been a hypnotic dog, which was absolute chaos.
Bloody hell. Yeah, we have. I'm not going to lie that we've covered quite a bit, but I've forgotten a lot.
Demons and ghosts, witches,
time travel,
time slippers.
Yep.
And telepathic sex healers.
Pirates.
Oh, we covered the boat, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say Blackbeard, but that was on the main show. And that was probably my favourite one to cover, actually. I've got to do another pirate
someone's
soon.
sausage.
We have covered someone's sausage. In meat sauce.
That's what I say, in tin foil. Stuck it in the microwave.
And actually, we've done pretty well with our expenses this year for our shop over at butitwasaliens.co.uk and our Patreon. We've pretty much covered our costs for the year.
Woohoo!
So,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
If you do have any of our merch, if you'd like to take a picture of yourself with said merch, we will post that shit all over our socials. And just tag us.
If you make us laugh, we might even think about sending you some more, which Granville will pay for.
With our Patreon funds. But no, seriously, do it.
Anyway, if for some reason you enjoy what we do and have a suggestion for a future case, you can drop us a message on the Twitter. @ButItWasAliens.
We also have an On the Twitter shirt now.
We do, live in our store. You may have seen it. It's one of our favourite pieces.
You can also check our socials. I may model it. On the catwalk. On
the Twitter, yeah. I shake my little tush on the Twitter.
He actually does.
Oh, I'm always shaking it. You can look up our But It Was Aliens Facebook page, which is linked to our private community group, Extraterrestrial Towers, where you can join free, like-minded individuals to talk peacefully about paranormal cases and drop silly memes. I think that's about it from us today, isn't it? So, until next time, if I were to suggest that incorrectly is spelt incorrectly in the dictionary, would I be telling the truth? The truth is up there.
In the dictionary.
#.